What's happening, YouTube? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. We got another solid weekend of fights coming up. On Friday, we have Bellator card, Bellator 67. That takes place at Casino Rama in Rama, Ontario. We're going to talk about the main card fights on that card. And then we also have UFC on Fox 3, Nate Diaz versus Jim Miller, and that card goes down on Saturday from New Jersey. So let's talk about our fight picks. Again, we'll start with Bellator 67, and we're going to talk about the main card fights. First fight on the main card is a welterweight fight between Ryan Ford and Luis Santos. A little bit about the fighters. Obviously, you guys all know how we do things around here. Ryan Ford, 17-4 on his pro MMA career. He is a veteran of MFC, the Maximum Fighting Championships. He's got wins on his pro career against Pete Spratt, which, you know, sort of big deal because Pete Spratt's 40, you know, sort of past his prime. Tommy Spear as well as Caro Parisian. So he has beaten, at least at one time, UFC caliber competition, and 16 of his 17 professional wins have come by way of finish. He's got 9 knockouts and 7 submissions. Going up against Luis Santos, very experienced fighter, 50 wins, 7 losses, and 1 draw on his pro career, and he's 1-1 in Bellator. He has a 72% finish rate on his pro wins, and I think that equates to 36 out of 50. So 36 of his 50 wins have come by way of finish. He has experience in the WEC. He's fought there before, and he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under the Nogueira brothers. As far as how I think this fight's going to go, Luis Santos definitely comes in, of course, as I said before, with the experience edge. For some reason, I just feel good about Ryan Ford. This would be an upset, and I absolutely acknowledge that it would be an upset if he happens to win it. I'm going to give it to Ryan Ford. I'm calling Ryan Ford to beat Luis Santos by a third-round knockout or technical knockout. I think he'll finish him. So that's Ford over Santos by a third-round knockout or TKO. Moving up to the heavyweights, we have Damian Grabowski taking on Dave Huckabee. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, or Huckabee, or something like that. Grabowski, 15-1 on his pro career. He's 1-1 in Bellator, and he was the April 4th, 2009 UCFC tournament champion. He fought 4 fights in one night to win that tournament. Again, April 4th, 2009. And 9 of his 15 pro wins have come by way of submission. So definitely very comfortable on the ground. I mean, you got to imagine his cardio is probably not an issue for a heavyweight, especially if you know, fought 4 fights and won 4 fights in one night. Dave Huckabee, 17-4 on his pro career, so slight experience edge there. Former Gladiator Challenge Superfight Heavyweight Champion, and 14 of his 17 professional wins have come by way of knockout, so he's very comfortable on his feet. You sort of have your classic stand-up fighter versus grappler matchup, and usually in those kind of fights, I usually tend to give the advantage to the guy on the ground. In general, you get a striker on the ground, they find things very difficult. So I'm giving the advantage in this fight and predicting Damian Grabowski to win the fight via second-round submission. Go on to the third fight on the main card, Bellator 67. This is a welterweight tournament semifinal bout. Ben Killa B. Saunders, who follows me on Twitter. Follow him on Twitter at Ben Saunders MMA. Taking on Brian Baker. A little bit about Ben Saunders. Killa B, 13-4-2 on his pro career. He's 4-1 in Bellator. Obviously, UFC experience. He made it to the finals of the welterweight tournament last season, the Season 5 welterweight tournament. He lost in that final match, but still made it to the finals. And 11 of his 13 pro wins have come by way of finish. He's got 6 knockouts. He's got 5 submissions. Ben Saunders, of course, repping the principles of Jeet Kune Do. And as I mentioned to him on Twitter the other day, Jeet Kune Do all fucking day. Brian Baker, 17-3 on his pro career, 7-2 in Bellator, so he does have more Bellator experience than Ben Saunders does. And actually, if you look at his 3 losses on his career, his losses actually come against pretty solid competition. He lost to his most recent loss to Vitor Viana, he lost to Alexander Shlemenko, and he lost to Chael Sonnen. So his pedigree is quite good. I've found Baker's wrestling to be a little suspect, and I think especially if this fight does hit the ground, that I think Ben is pretty dangerous when the fight hits the ground. Also mentioned about Brian Baker, 11 of his 17 pro wins have come by way of a finish. I mean, what else are you gonna do? I gotta go with Ben Saunders. I mean, I can't rep him on Twitter and then not pick him in the fight. Ben Saunders definitely giving him the advantage in the fight. I'm predicting Ben Saunders will beat Brian Baker by way of unanimous judges' decision. And that moves us on to the main event. The main event is going to be contested at lightweight. It is a non-title super fight. This is between the Bellator lightweight champion Michael Chandler and Akihiro Gono. A little bit about Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler undefeated on his MMA career, 9-0. He's 6-0 in Bellator. He has fought in Strikeforce before, and as I mentioned, is the current lightweight champ in Bellator, taking that title away from Eddie Alvarez. And 7 of his 9 pro wins have come by way of finish. Akihiro Gono, you could write a book on Akihiro Gono, but I'll just give you a little rundown. 31-17-7 on his pro career, and I mean he's fought everywhere. He's fought in Shudo, Pancrase, Deep, Pride, UFC, Sengoku. Akihiro Gono is a legend, and he's currently on a 2-fight winning streak. I got to give the advantage in the fight to Michael Chandler, just based on how phenomenal he's looked in every single one of the fights that I've seen him in, and just the way that he basically dismantled Eddie Alvarez to take that title from him. I'm going to give Akihiro Gono the benefit of the doubt and say that Michael Chandler's not going to finish him, but I got to give the advantage in the fight to Michael Chandler by way of unanimous judges' decision. So just again to break down my predictions for the main card for Bellator 67, I've got Ryan Ford beating Luis Santos by 3rd round knockout or TKO. I've got Damian Grabowski beating Dave Huckabee by 2nd round submission. I've got Ben Saunders beating Brian Baker by unanimous judges' decision, and I've got Michael Chandler defeating Akihiro Gono by unanimous judges' decision. Once again, that's a non-title fight. It is a super fight at the lightweight division. All right, we're going to move on to UFC. That's the reason everybody's here, so let's give it to them. We have a free fight card coming up this weekend. It's Saturday night from New Jersey, Atlantic City, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I know it's in New Jersey. We got 12 fights on this card, only 4 on the main card. We got 8 preliminary fights, so it's really important that pretty well everybody has access to watching these fights for free on Fuel TV in the States. I know Rogers Sportsnet carries all of them in Canada. So it makes it really important that you guys watch the preliminary fights, because that's where the bulk of this event is going to be. So we'll start with the middleweights, and I believe this is actually a fight that's also going to be free on Facebook. We got Mike Messenzio taking on Carlos Vamola. Mike Messenzio, 13-6 on his pro career, only 2-4 in the UFC, so he's got a less than impressive record in the UFC. UFC losses to CB Dollaway, Brian Stan, Krzysztof Shashinsky, and Rusumir Palhares, who's also fighting on this card. Mike Messenzio needs a win here. He needs a win in a big, bad way. Taking on Carlos Vamola. Carlos Vamola, 8-2 on his pro career, 1-2 in the UFC, so both of his career losses coming inside the octagon. All 8 of his professional wins have come by finish, even split, 4 knockout, 4 submission, and he has never been finished in his pro career. Now, the majority of Vamola's fights, I believe, have taken place at light heavyweight. That's another one of those things. Don't quote me on it, but I think. So this is a relatively new. It is a relatively new weight class for him, and I'm actually pretty high on Mike Messenzio here. I think Messenzio is going to be able to effectively use his wrestling and keep pretty well keep Vamola. I think Vamola would be better served by keeping the fight standing. I don't think that's going to happen, and I expect Mike Messenzio to grind out a unanimous judges' decision victory over Carlos Vamola in their first fight of the night. Next fight, we're moving all the way down to the bantamweight division. This is an all-Canadian fight now. Roland Delorme taking on Nick Denis. A little bit about Roland Delorme, who is I believe is a late replacement in this fight, and I can't remember for who. Roland Delorme, 7-1 on his pro career. He's 1-0 in the UFC. An alumni of Ultimate Fighter 14. All 7 of his wins have been finishes, 2 knockouts and 5 submissions. And in his UFC debut, he won via submission rear naked choke of Josh Ferguson. Taking on Nick Denis. Nick Denis, 11-2 on his pro career. 1-0 in the UFC. He knocked out Sandoval in, I have it written down, 22 seconds in his debut in the UFC. So I mean, what a way to make your debut, right? One of his pro losses also coming at the hands of Marlon Sandro, so you know, no disrespect there. And 10 of his 11 pro wins have come by way of knockout. So this is another one of those striker versus predominantly grappler matchups. This time, however, I think it's going to go the way of the striker. I'm taking Nick Denis to defeat Roland Delorme by first round knockout or TKO. I think he finishes him inside of the first round. Moving up to the featherweights, we have Dennis the Menace Bermudez. I think it's Dennis the Menace. I think. Anyways, Dennis Bermudez taking on Pablo Garza. Dennis Bermudez, 7-3 on his pro career. He's 0-1 in the UFC. Currently on a 3-fight losing streak. He is a Division 1, or he was a Division 1 wrestler, so he's got a very good wrestling pedigree. But all 3 of his pro losses have come by way of submission, and I think that's going to play a key role in this fight. Pablo Garza, 11-2 on his pro career. He's 2-1 in the UFC. He's an alumni of the Ultimate Fighter 12. 7 of his 11 pro wins have come by way of submission, and his 2 UFC wins, Pablo Garza has taken to basically anything he can do while jumping. That's what Pablo Garza is going to do. His 2 wins in the UFC have both been finishes. One was a career highlight reel flying knee knockout, and the other one was a career highlight reel flying triangle choke submission. So he is an insanely fun fighter to watch, and I'm going to give him the edge in this fight. I'm going to give Pablo Garza the edge in this fight to defeat Dennis Bermudez. I think he's going to submit him in the second round. I think the fact that all 3 of Bermudez's career losses come by submission, and the fact that Garza's got 7 of his 11 pro wins have come by submission, I think that's going to come into play. Garza's going to get this fight to the ground, and he's going to finish him off inside of 2 rounds. Moving up to the lightweights, we have Danny Castillo. I think his last call, Castillo, versus John Cholish. Danny Castillo, of course, much loved and repped fighter by my boys over at Mano y Mano. I know they love Danny Castillo. Danny Castillo, 13-4 on his pro career, 3-1 in the UFC. Currently riding a 2-fight win streak. He has 8 fights of experience inside the WEC, and 9 of his 13 pro wins have come by way of finish, 5 knockouts, and 4 submissions. John Cholish, 8-1 on his pro career, 1-0 in the UFC. 7 of his 8 pro wins are finishes, 3 knockouts, 4 submissions, and he currently trains with the Renzo Gracie fight team. I gotta roll with Castillo. I can't get myself on the outs with J-Ro and Wolfman over at Mano y Mano, so I definitely gotta roll with Danny Castillo. Last call, baby. I wish I had the headband. Danny Castillo by I think he'll finish him. Third round, I'll give him a third round knockout or TKO, one or the other. It's Danny Castillo to finish John Cholish via third round knockout or TKO. Uh-oh, my pages are sticking together. I swear to God I wasn't doing anything before I started recording. Alright, moving all the way down to the little guys, the flyweights. Louis Godino versus John Lineker, and Lineker has a ridiculous long name. He's got like six other names after Lineker, and I'm not even going to waste your time. Louis Godino, 5-2 in his pro career. He's 0-1 in the UFC, an alumni of the Ultimate Fighter 14. He's also a former Ring of Combat featherweight champion, and 3 of his 5 pro wins have been finishes. John Lineker, 19-5 in his pro career, making his UFC debut. John Lineker on an unbelievable 13-fight winning streak. Really rolling, one of the longest in MMA right now. Has not lost a fight since 2009. And this is going to be his first career fight outside of Brazil. He's never fought outside of Brazil before, so it'll be interesting to see how he handles the bright lights of North America, as well as octagon jitters, of course. First time fighting outside Brazil and octagon jitters aside, I'm very high on John Lineker. I've only seen a very little bit of him, but I'm very high on his fighting style. No disrespect to Louis Godino, but I don't see this one getting out of the first round. I've got John Lineker winning this fight via either knockout or TKO inside of the first round. Moving up to the welterweights, we've got John Hathaway taking on Pascal Krause. John Hathaway, 15-1 on his pro career. He's 5-1 in the UFC. Even win distribution, 5 knockouts, 4 submissions, 6 decisions. And he currently trains between London Shoot Fighters, American Top Team, and 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu with Eddie Bravo. Pascal Krause, 10-0, undefeated 10-0. He's 1-0 in the UFC. What's kind of interesting about Pascal Krause, well, there's 2 things. The first thing is he's got one of the most badass nicknames in MMA. Pascal Krause's nickname is Panzer, which is German for tank. And just to come out and know this guy is like German, and to just hear him be like Panzer, I think that's, I don't know, it's a great nickname. It really works for me. One of the other things actually more relevant to his fight career, 7 of his 10 pro wins have come by submission, but he's only a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. If you know anything about the belt colors in BJJ, a blue belt is just one step above your white belt beginner. So, I mean, you know, a blue belt usually only takes, I think, between 3 to 6 months to get. Somebody can correct me on that if I'm incorrect. I think I might be, but I think I thought it only took anywhere between 3 to 6 months to move from a white belt to a blue belt. So it's just really interesting that 7 of his 10 wins have come by submission, but he's only a blue belt in BJJ. And I know there's other ground fight styles with submissions too, but I found that very interesting. As far as who I'm giving the advantage in this fight, I would really love to say that I thought Pascal Krause was going to win this fight. I don't think so. I consider John Hathaway to be one of the rising stars in the welterweight division. I think John Hathaway is going to take this fight. I think it'll be relatively close. I figure this is probably going to be a bit of a ground battle. I'm going to take John Hathaway by way of unanimous judges' decision. Moving back down to the flyweights, we've got John Dodson taking on Tim Elliott. John Dodson, 12-5 in his pro career. He's 1-0 in the UFC. Of course, one of the winners of the Ultimate Fighter 14. Currently riding a 3-fight win streak. And on his career, he is an even 5-5 if the fight goes all the way to a unanimous, or to the judges. If the fight goes to the judges, on his career, 5 wins, 5 losses. Tim Elliott, 8-2-1 on his pro career, making his UFC debut. 7 of his 8 fights have been finishes. But both of his losses have also been finishes. So he does not like going to the judges, which is why I thought it was really interesting that Dodson was a career 5-5. When his opponent really does not like things going to the judges. And Tim Elliott is widely considered to be a top 10 fighter at this weight class. It's so difficult to say that, though, because the flyweight division is so thin. But, you know, he's considered to be, I think he's ranked number 7 overall by, I don't know if it's Sherdog or who it is, but so he's considered to be a top 10 ranked fighter at this weight class. That being said, I used to really not like John Dodson. I don't know if it was just like, if it was because of the show, and you know, everybody knows how the show can really distort. But I like John Dodson now. I like what I'm seeing from him in the octagon, and I'm going to give John Dodson the win here, even though Elliott is a consensus top 10 ranked flyweight fighter. I'm going to give John Dodson the advantage and the win. My prediction for the win by unanimous judges' decision. And the last fight on the preliminary card, we have Tony Ferguson taking on, I'm going to do my best GSP impression here, Michael Johnson. That wasn't too bad. That wasn't terrible. Tony Ferguson, 13-2 on his pro MMA career, 3-0 in the UFC, was the winner of the Ultimate Fighter 13, currently riding a 6-fight win streak. 11 of his 13 pro wins have been by way of finish, and he was a Div 2 NCAA wrestler in his college days. Taking on Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson, 10-6 on his pro career, an even record of 2-2 in the UFC. He is an alumni of Tough 12 the year before Tony Ferguson, or the season before Tony Ferguson, I should say. And he is a former champ at this weight class in both Midwest Fight League as well as Extreme Cage Fight. So Michael Johnson does have championship experience in lesser organizations. I tell you, Tony Ferguson is a beast, man. I really hated on him through that whole season that he was on The Ultimate Fighter, especially when he came up against Ramsey Nijem, because I really wanted Ramsey Nijem to win Tough 13. Of course, he didn't. But I'm really high on what I've seen in Tony Ferguson, and he is a beast. I think he will continue beasting. I think he will effectively neutralize Michael Johnson's wrestling, based on the fact that they both have quite good pedigrees in terms of being collegiate wrestlers. I'm going to give Tony Ferguson the edge. Tony Ferguson, I'm predicting to win by way of 3rd round knockout or TKO. So that's it for the preliminary card. Going to move on to the main card. Again, only 4 main card fights on this card. Starting with the heavyweights, the big boys, we have Pat Hype or Die Barry taking on Lavon Johnson. Pat Barry, 7-4 on his pro career. He's also an established kickboxer professionally. 4-4 in the UFC. He broke a 2-fight losing streak in his last fight against Christian Moorcraft. And 6 of his 7 pro wins, of course, come by way of knockout because of his kickboxing pedigree. The book's been written on Pat Barry, vicious leg kicks. Pat Barry's the man when it comes to those leg kicks. Lavon Johnson, 16-5 on his pro career. He's 1-0 in the UFC. In his UFC debut, he knocked out Joey Beltran. He is a veteran of both Strikeforce and the WEC, and 14 of his 16 pro wins have come by way of knockout. Most people, I think, are expecting this to be fight of the night, and certainly knockout of the night, most people are expecting. I bet you I'm probably the only guy on the planet that actually thinks this thing is going to go the whole 3 rounds. I think they're going to be sucking wind like Rothwell and Hunt, but I think the thing's going to go the whole way. And I'm actually expecting Pat Hype or Die Barry to come out with the win here against Lavon Johnson by way of unanimous judges' decision. Cue the thumbs down. All right, moving on. Moving down to the middleweights. We have Rousimar Palhares taking on Alan the Talent Belcher. I'm really looking forward to this fight. These are two guys that I am very, very high on. I love watching both of these guys fight, so this is one of the most anticipated fights of the night for me. Rousimar Palhares, 14-3 on his pro career. He's 7-2 inside the octagon, currently riding a 3-fight win streak. 10 of his 14 wins have come by submissions. Dude loves that heel hook. Any leg submissions, Palhares can lock on, take a leg home with him. So 10 of 14, including 5 of his 7 UFC wins have come by way of submission. So it's not like he's a complete foreigner to submitting guys inside the octagon. Alan the Talent Belcher, 17-6 on his pro career, 8-4 in the UFC. He's also on a 3-fight win streak, and 15 of his 17 wins have come by way of submission. 8 knockouts, 7 submissions. So he's also no scrub when it comes to the ground game. I think this is going to be a phenomenal ground war. I really do. Palhares is so big and so strong at this weight class, and he's so good at getting you on the ground. I think Palhares will put him on the ground, but I think this is going to be a great ground war. I expect to see some phenomenal submission attempts, some phenomenal submission defense. In the end, I think Rousimar Palhares is going to get a hold of him. Could be a choke, could be a knee bar, a heel hook, whatever. Rousimar Palhares, I'm predicting by second round submission on Alan the Talent Belcher. Moving down to the welterweights, your co-main event of the evening, Josh Koscheck taking on Johnny Hendricks, another fight that I'm actually really looking forward to. Josh Koscheck, 17-5 on his pro career, including 15-5 in the UFC, only 2 fights on his career outside of the UFC. Of course, we all know him from the very first Ultimate Fighter, currently riding a 2-fight win streak since that loss to GSP, where he broke his orbital bone. Hasn't looked like the same Koscheck, but he still won his 2 fights, so, there you go. 5-2 since 2009, and of course, Div 1 wrestler. Johnny Hendricks, 12-1 on his pro career, including 7-1 in the UFC. 7 of his 12 wins have come by knockout, and you look at that and think, oh, well, geez, he must be a great stand-up fighter, knockout artist. Not really, but, his stand-up is certainly improved in the last little while. 3 wins in 2011, 3 very quality wins. TJ Waldberger, Mike Pierce, and John Fitch. That beautiful, I think it was 12-second knockout of John Fitch that just made me want to joygasm. Like, it was so good. I love watching John Fitch lose. It doesn't happen very often, but I still like seeing it. This, I think, is going to be a very close fight. These are 2 very good wrestlers. I gotta give it to Koscheck. He might not look good doing it, but I think Koscheck is trying to get back into that spot where he can maybe get another crack at GSP or Condit or whoever happens to end up being the welterweight champ. I'm going to assume GSP, but you never know. So I'm going to give the advantage to Josh Koscheck by way of unanimous judges' decision. And in the main event, we have a main event with the Diaz brother. How can you not love this? Nate Diaz taking on Jim Miller. Nate Diaz on his career, 15-7, including 10-5 in the UFC. Winner of the Ultimate Fighter 5. All 5 of his UFC losses have come by way of decision. But 10 of his 15 pro wins have come by way of submission, including 7 in the UFC. Jim Miller, 21-3 on his pro career. Very, very good record, including 10-2 in the UFC. 12 of his 21 wins have come by way of submission. He's got 4 submission wins in the UFC. And all 3 of his pro losses also come by way of decision. It seems to me that the idea is that if you're a wrestler, like if you're a real good wrestler, you can beat a Diaz. That seems to be the general consensus. So I think in this fight, for Jim Miller to have a chance, he's going to have to just really wrestle fuck Nate Diaz for 5 rounds. But I really don't think that's going to be Jim Miller's style. I think Miller wants to kind of be the one to prove that he can stand and bang with a Diaz, and that's a bad idea. Just in general, it's just a bad idea. I think if he plays into Diaz's style, Nate's got the superior stand-up. There's no question about it. But then even if Jim tries to wrestle fuck him and put him on his back, we all know how dangerous Diaz brothers are out of their guard. Much respect to Cesar Gracie Fight Team and the Scrap Pack for that. I see so many more ways for Nate Diaz to win this fight than I do Jim Miller to win this fight. Ergo, I have to predict Nate Diaz is going to win this fight by way of 3rd round submission. Remember, this is a 5-round fight because it's a main event. I gotta give it to Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz by way of 3rd round submission. Those are my picks. We're just going to go over them one more time, starting on the undercard. Mike Mesenzio. I'm predicting Mike Mesenzio to defeat Carlos Vamola by way of unanimous decision. I got Nick Dennis to defeat Roland Delorme by way of 1st round knockout or technical knockout. I've got Pablo Garza defeating Dennis Bermudez by 2nd round submission. I've got Danny Castillo defeating John Cholish by 3rd round knockout or TKO. I've got John Lineker defeating Louis Godino by way of 1st round knockout or TKO. I've got John Hathaway defeating Pascal Krause by way of unanimous judges' decision. I've got John Dodson defeating Tim Elliott by way of unanimous judges' decision. And I've got Tony Ferguson defeating Michael Johnson by way of 3rd round knockout or TKO. And on the main card, I've got Pat Barry defeating LeVar Johnson by way of unanimous judges' decision. I've got Rousimar Palhares defeating Alan Belcher by way of 2nd round submission. I've got Josh Koscheck defeating Johnny Hendricks by way of unanimous judges' decision. And in the main event, I've got Nate Diaz beating Jim Miller by way of 3rd round submission. Those are my predictions both for Bellator 67 and UFC on Fox 3. The card's coming up this weekend. I want to hear and I want to see your predictions in the comments below on the video. Make video responses if you want. Subscribe to me on this bitch. Keep me going. Follow me on Twitter, all that good stuff. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Didn't acknowledge it before, but chilling with the big gold belt in the background, and enjoy the fights this weekend. Diaz, brother.